Indian Air Force expressed its frustration over the delays in the delivery of Tejas Mk1A fighter jets at Aero India show in Bengaluru this week. Now, Indian Air Force has ordered 83 of these advanced jets to address a critical shortfall in its fleet of fighter squadrons. However, the delayed deliveries have raised concerns, particularly regarding the role of Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, the state-owned aerospace company responsible for producing the jets. While inspecting an aircraft at the air show, Air Force Air Chief Marshal AP Singh was heard expressing his dissatisfaction with HAL. He told the officials from the company, and I'm going to quote him here, that I can only tell you what our requirements and our worries are. At the moment, I'm just not confident of HAL, which is a very wrong thing to happen. HAL is our own company. We all have worked there. I have also served there. I find that we are just not in mission mode. Everything is ho jayega, or translated into it will happen. Now, in response to ACM Singh's remarks, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited Chairman and Managing Director D.K. Sunil has addressed the concerns, emphasizing that the delay was not caused by the laziness, but by the technical issues that have now been resolved. Sunil has said, and I'm going to quote him here as well, the delay is not simply attributed to just, I would say, laziness on part of the industry. There have been technical issues which have got sorted out. The concerns of the Air Chief is understandable. My colleague Sandeep Unithan is joining us on the phone line. Sandeep, a very good morning to you. Let's first talk about something grave that has been highlighted by the IAF Chief. He has highlighted the procrastination in this entire matter, which is something that we should be considering as a matter of concern.
Good morning, Sakshi. It is very unusual for an Air Force chief to be heard, publicly berating the only aircraft manufacturer, the only fighter aircraft manufacturer in the country, which is Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, which is a state-owned corporation. It's been making aircraft for more than half a century now. And I just want to go back into the issues that the Air Force really has and the reason why the Air Force chief spoke out the way he did. Let me clarify that this was not a press conference that the Air Force chief addressed, or these remarks were not meant to be heard publicly. It was actually something like a hot mic thing when he was picked up, when TV cameras actually picked him up speaking to Air Force, my apologies, the HAL officials. When he was sitting in the cockpit, he was talking to them, and that conversation was recorded by several media cameras that were there, and in which the Air Force chief has expressed his frustrations, that the statements that you just repeated. The fact is that there are a couple of issues here between the Indian Air Force and the HAL, and the reasons are, to begin with, the Indian Air Force has a sanctioned strength of 42 fighter squadrons. Now, each fighter squadron has around 18 fighter aircraft. Now, the numbers of these aircraft squadrons have dipped over the last couple of years because old aircraft are being retired and they're not being replaced by newer aircraft. So now the Indian Air Force is left with less than 32 fighter squadrons, which is less than 10 squadrons over their sanctioned limit. The Air Force hoped that these numbers would be made up by HAL, which is producing the LCA Mark 1 and the LCA Mark 1A. Now, in 2021, the Indian Air Force ordered 83 of these Mark 1A fighters for 48,000 crore, and it plans to buy 97 more Mark 1As for around 67,000 crores. So that is something like more than 150, 160 fighter aircraft of the LCA Mark 1 and Mark 1A. Now, the Air Force chief says that the first 11 of these aircraft, that's roughly a squadron's worth of LCA Mark 1As, were to be shown to him by February. But the issue is that HAL could not get these aircraft ready, and the Air Force chief said, "Look, I understand the fact that the engines could not be delivered because of the U.S. manufacturer not supplying the engines." Now, while the aircraft is indigenous, we must bear in mind that the engines which are the heart of the aircraft, come from the United States. And these engines are made by GE, the 404 engines that are supplied by GE. And I'm sure this is something that Prime Minister Modi might take up with President Trump when he meets him in the White House tomorrow. The engines have not come, and therefore the 11 LCA Mark 1As that were meant to be ready by February have not been readied yet. And the first aircraft of the LCA Mark 1A was to be delivered to the Indian Air Force by March, that is next month. That doesn't seem to be happening at all. So overall, Sakshi, it is the Air Force chief, venting the anxiety of the Indian Air Force, the fact that they are not getting the numbers that they have ordered for from HAL. And they are falling behind in numbers, not just in fifth-generation fighter aircraft, which we just saw at Aero India. We saw the fifth-generation fighter aircraft from the US and from the Russian Federation. The Indian Air Force does not have the fifth-generation fighter yet, and they are even falling behind in the numbers for the basic fourth-generation fighter aircraft, which is the LCA Mark 1A and the Mark 2, Sakshi.
Right. Sandeep, that's really alarming that the IAF chief himself has to highlight this particular attitude problem on a public domain. But apart from that, if we were to look in the past, have you ever come across any of such instances where HAL has been questioned with regards to this quote-unquote laziness?
Well, Sakshi, this has been a bone of contention between the Indian Air Force and the HAL for several years now. These have been primarily the subject of closed-door discussions. They happen behind closed doors. They happen in conferences and meetings between the IAF and the HAL, where the Air Force is always unhappy with the rate of delivery of the aircraft that they are meant to get. The HAL has not been able to deliver it on time. This is possibly the first time that we are seeing a public outing of the Air Force's feelings about HAL. And again, I must caveat this by saying this was not meant to be a public press conference. It's just a conversation that was caught by media cameras. It was a hot mic moment where the Air Force chief possibly did not anticipate the fact that there were cameras in earshot or in audio range of his conversation with the HAL personnel. And I'm sure the Air Force would understand the fact that they wouldn't want such conversations to be out in the public, such disagreements between the Indian Air Force and India's only fighter aircraft manufacturer, HAL. There are issues. They have been there in the past. And one of the major concerns, Sakshi, I can tell you, is the fact that the Air Force says that until a few decades ago, there was always a very active Indian Air Force component involved in Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. You had the chiefs of the HAL as retired Indian Air Force fighter pilots or Indian Air Force officials. But now that has changed. You have HAL now on its own. It's got its own corps of officers who have risen and they've been heading the HAL. The Air Force has always had this gripe that they have not had any representation on HAL. They have no idea what's going on inside there. So it's literally they're working in silos. That is one possible other area of concern which, Air Force officials have highlighted in the past, that they need to work more closely with the HAL.